Welcome to the Wildlife Factor. Join us on an epic journey into the American frontier, where the Wild West comes alive in all its raw and complex reality. This video explores the untold history of the American frontier, from indigenous resilience to the westward expansion and the lasting impact of the Indian Removal Act. If you're passionate about Native American history, westward expansion, and the Trail of Tears, or want to understand the rich culture and survival of indigenous communities, this is for you. Introduction. In the early 19th century, settlers moved west, driven by a myth of empty land, unaware of the indigenous communities that had thrived across this vast terrain for centuries. From the Choctaw in the southeast to the Lakota Sioux on the plains, Native American nations were deeply connected to their environments. However, the arrival of new technology, livestock, and diseases brought by settlers devastated indigenous populations with no immunity, marking the beginning of significant change. Indigenous resilience on the frontier. Before the arrival of settlers, indigenous communities across 828,000 square miles of land lived sustainably, using trade, alliances, and strategic relationships to thrive. This is not the history often told. The resilience of Native American people has been overshadowed by tales of conquest. With the introduction of Spanish horses, the landscape transformed, giving plains tribes a new tool for hunting and warfare, which intensified competition over land and resources. Westward expansion and the Indian Removal Act. Colonial ambition drove U.S. policies that clashed with indigenous ways of life. President Andrew Jackson's Indian Removal Act was a brutal chapter in this story, forcing entire tribes, such as the Cherokee, Choctaw, Creek, and Seminole, from their ancestral lands in what became the infamous Trail of Tears. Thousands lost their lives, and communities were displaced to harsh lands in the West, creating a lasting impact on Native American history. The legacy of the Trail of Tears and forced relocation. The Indian Removal Act set a tragic precedent, isolating indigenous tribes in Oklahoma and stripping them of sacred landscapes. Yet, in these displaced communities, the spirit of resilience endured. Some, like the Seminole in Florida, resisted relocation with fierce opposition, fighting U.S. military forces to hold onto their lands. This chapter reveals the strength of indigenous cultures and the lasting impact of forced relocation. The tragic transformation of Indian country to slave country. As settlers flooded westward, the transformation continued, and Indian country became slave country, marking a significant and tragic shift in U.S. history. Roads were packed with settlers and enslaved laborers moving to occupy indigenous land, forever altering the frontier landscape. This era laid the foundation for colonization and displacement, shaping the nation's identity and leaving behind a legacy of indigenous resilience. Honoring Native American history and culture today. Today, many descendants of indigenous nations remember this dark chapter, viewing figures like Andrew Jackson not as heroes, but as symbols of oppression. Despite enduring trauma, Native American communities honor the resilience of their ancestors, preserving their history, culture, and enduring spirit. The Wildlife Factor brings you these untold stories of resilience, survival, and the indomitable human spirit that thrived despite overwhelming odds. Join us at the Wildlife Factor to uncover hidden stories of American frontier history, Native American history, and wildlife preservation that shaped the nation. Subscribe now and become part of our community dedicated to exploring the beauty, complexity, and resilience of our shared past. By subscribing, you're supporting our mission to share these powerful stories, ensuring the legacy of indigenous resilience and the frontier's untold history lives on. Each episode is an opportunity to explore the Wild West and beyond, shedding light on the truths that shaped America. So hit that subscribe button, follow the Wildlife Factor, and let's journey together through history, nature, and the legacy of resilience that lives on in every corner of the American landscape.